The Strain Season 3, Episode 7, Collaborators. I really enjoyed this episode for the emotional backstory that we got for Fet's character in this. I actually really love that. I think, especially the scene where he actually talks about kind of the connection that he has to the flashbacks. So I was, of course, trying to figure that out. Like, who are these characters and what's going on here? Is it someone that, Setrakian would end up meeting? Or honestly, for a split second, I thought maybe when he was going to like the pawnbroker, I thought, because he's a bit secretive, maybe he knew this guy when they were actually in the camp together, and I thought that that would kind of be how things kind of played out. Like, it would be these two guys initially started off, and then one of the friends dies, and the other friend meets Setrakian, and they become the two where it's like, we have to survive together, and it's just, kind of a different chunk of history, with Setrakian. Maybe it was before he went to do the woodwork and stuff, and then it was something else where he met this other person. But we actually find out that these flashbacks are connected to Fet through his grandfather, and I really love that. I actually really enjoyed the flashbacks because it just starts off simple as these two guys in war. They're in the trenches, and it's like, we have to fight for each other so that we can both survive and get through this stuff. And it continues on, and they of course get captured, and then naturally, are the one person that we have that actually has a connection to being a Nazi. He freaking shows up, and he was just as evil as he always is. Nothing different. I think that scene was definitely difficult to watch. I think those two scenes were very emotional, where it's like, man, the force / decision that, this one man had to make, that these two people had to make, and knowing that both himself and his friend would die if his grandfather's like, he calls Lycors back, and it was just an interesting scene. Like, he had to go through with it, and it was still too late. He survived, of course, which, we know that he survived the whole thing because, of course, Fet is his grandson. But we find out that he actually killed himself because of, what he ended up doing. And, his family doesn't even know whether or not he was forced to do it, or whether or not he decided to do it. And yeah, I guess he just never told them that part, like why he initially went through with it, why he went through with such a difficult decision when it was to basically keep the promise that he had to save his friend. Which even in the beginning he couldn't do it, but when it was, he knew it was like, oh, okay, we aren't just gonna send you back on the line or whatever, we're just gonna kill you both. It was like, alright, I'll do it to, save my friend. And then, unfortunately, he's the only one left. And it's like, well, now I just have to do it for myself. So, I love that portion of the episode. I thought the flashbacks were good. Excuse me, like I said, the scene where Fet actually talks about his father and how they, or, like the final moment about his father and kind of just their history, their family history and that darkness and stuff. I loved it. I thought it was really well done, and talking about his grandfather killing himself and committing suicide, and how that connected to his father not being the first to technically commit suicide, and also how him being an exterminator was such a horrible thing to his father, because it's literally in the title. It's totally different thing because, of course, he's killing bugs and rats and stuff like that, but it's in there, just that part of their history, and he says, his father saw that darkness in him, or was scared that he would have that darkness in him. So I love that scene. I thought it was very well done, and I enjoyed the rest of the episode as well. But I thought we never get really stuff on Fet. Like, we don't ever get anything on him. I was kind of blown away when I saw the recap and they showed his dad, because that was from, if I remember right, that was from the first season actually, and I was like, holy crap, that was like a long time ago, and I completely forgot that his parents were even in the show, or his dad was at least. And then, they have that early on scene where he goes to see if his parents are even alive or not, and he finds them both in the bed, and that was a really great emotional moment, and it's just something we don't get from Fet at all, really. So I really love this episode for giving us that sort of really deep look into his character and his family's backstory, and a very emotional side of his character that's not just, I wasn't close to my dad. It was, it was a really dark connection as to why they ended up really not talking. It was because he went into a certain business that simply had a title, and that was too much for his dad to bear, considering what he knew his father went through every time now. But I love that. I thought it was really well done. I enjoyed the rest of the episode as well. I thought it was cool getting to see Quinlan go around, and he was just like destroying stuff in this episode. He was actually very cool. But that first scene where it's it's F, Dutch, and Quinlan, and so Dutch is like, hey, stop the car. We're gonna help these people because they go outside the safe zone. I didn't think there would even be people. I'm not gonna lie. I thought it was like, oh, it's outside the safe zone. It's just gonna be chaos. It'll either be bare streets or it'll be like a couple of people maybe. But I thought it would just be complete darkness, and they couldn't go in like any building or anything. They'd have to just really be careful and not stay out after dark. I thought it would just be like a barren wasteland, if I'm being totally honest. And there are a ton of people. Everybody has a gun though. It was like everybody had a shotgun or an assault rifle. And then finally, when we actually got to the family being held up, that's when we saw like the first couple of people with handguns. Everybody else was like armed to the teeth with shotguns and assault rifles and stuff. So it was really shocking to see, the outside of the safe zone, because I guess we just hadn't seen it for so long. I really just assumed everybody out there is toast. I just didn't think there would be anybody there. Either everyone's in the safe zone, or they took off, or they died. But there were actually a ton of people still out there, and they go in and they're going to save this family, and Dutch and Elf are talking it up like, hey, it doesn't have to be like this. You can let this family go, and it shouldn't have worked. Like I think it was the mother who was still being held on. She still should have died because Quinlan stabbed the dude that was holding the father, and the other guy. I mean, at the same time, when someone comes in with a sword killing somebody, you're like, okay, I don't really care that much about shooting you. I gotta defend myself now. But Quinlan stabbed that dude in the back, and then he was just like chopping everybody up. He did like the back stab on the other dude, so they like destroyed all those people. And then of course the family freaked out, like, looking at Quinlan, and so of course they take off and they hit that cart on the way out. I thought that was funny for some reason, but I like that scene. I thought that was really cool. They go to the airport. They actually go get the black box, which I never knew black boxes weren't black. I never actually knew that, so I learned something today. And so they go through, and then they have the scene when they're walking out. I was like, yep, we got the black box, so, let's head on out. And Quinlan just has his, his little SMGs, and he's just like, boom, boom, and he like just turns around and kills one, and they just keep walking. I'm like, he's just super cool in this episode. He just kills people, and he keeps on going with his little circular glasses. But I like their little journey. They get the black box, and I assume that this is going to work. I hope it works for sure, but they have the black box, and their hope is that they can somehow isolate the signal of the master's voice. And I think it'll work, because otherwise that would really, really suck. They got nothing otherwise. So I really do hope that it works. And then on the other side of things, we have Palmer dealing with the fact that he's really being outed, from the inner circle. He isn't getting, the everlasting life. They even talk about that, him and Ichorus. And he's like, the master's not going to come through on his side, and yet I'm still alive. He's not going to give me eternal life, but I'm still here. Even in my weakened state, he has me alive because, like, why is that? And it's mostly because he needs them for one thing or another, like bringing the ship in the first place. And they throw out a really crazy possibility in this episode when it's mentioned that, all the cargo on the ship was taken, because Setrakian's like, there are like 7 masters and stuff, and he was, the master inside of New York was kind of outed for a long time. So it's like, it's the master, and then we have the other 3. So that's 4. And we still have 3 more to go. Maybe 2 more, because I don't know about the one that was encased in the Egyptian script that they read from the book. But there's 2, maybe 3 masters that could be brought over to help the current master finish the job. And I really hope Setrakian was wrong, because when he said that, I was like, they wouldn't win. There's no way that they could win if that's what really just happened. And maybe they'll do it where they, only one master was found and, brought over. But I don't know. It seems like that might be a part of what Quinlan is going to be asking the other masters in the promo that I saw. It seemed like that might be the question if he's, talks with Setrakian. But when they said that, I was like, oh crap, that is interesting. And I don't know. I mean, it's already bad enough. I mean, coming off the last episode, everything kind of sucks now. Like, they lost Central Park. They lost a bunch of random checkpoints and all this other extra stuff. So I don't really know what to expect. I also called it. I mentioned that there would be a bunch of chaos, but we wouldn't get to see it. They definitely did that. It just went to the next day, and they didn't really even talk about it. It didn't seem that bad in this episode, if I'm being totally honest. It's like, oh, we lost Central Park. Like, they during the recap, it's like, if we lose Central Park, we can lose the city, and it's terrible. And then this episode, I was like, it kind of seems normal. The whole city seems normal. I mean, outside of the actual safe zone, which actually does seem bad, everything did, nothing seemed to really change. But I don't know. If Setrakian's right, that'll be a crazy change for the series, I think, going up against multiple masters. And I don't know if I doubt that they would do it where he, the current master brought in like the other 4 masters, or the other 3 masters, so that it's 4 inside of New York, at least attacking people, and the other 3 just doing nothing, I guess. But maybe they will add at least 1 master. If it's not that, then maybe it will just be some other weapon or something crazy. Like, who knows what the heck this thing is going to be. I just hope Setrakian was wrong, because I'm like, man, that bringing over the masters, the other masters, and, I don't know what that would mean for the show, but has me excited to find out either way. Palmer does eventually get his serum. He gets a little dose, at least. He doesn't get the actual full serum, but he gets the dose in this episode, and I don't know what to expect, because, like I mentioned that before, what's he going to say when Icarus finally comes strolling around? Like, he's been coughing up blood, he passed out and everything in the last episode that they met, so I don't know what his excuse is going to be. Like, yeah, I'm just modern medicine, like, I feel like that's probably what he's going to say. It's like, we did some experimental stuff or whatever, and it worked for me. So I don't know if that's how it's going to play out, but I think Icarus is going to be a little bit suspicious with his one hand now. I was surprised by that as well. I honestly thought, considering their characters, they could probably like grow limbs back and stuff. Maybe that's true, and it'll just take a couple episodes or something. But that opening scene where his hand is chopped off and he actually has to like cauterize the wound, I was surprised he had to do that. I was like, I didn't think they'd have to like a normal human would if you got a really big cut, cauterize it or sew it up or something. I mean, in that case, you'd have to cauterize. You can't. There's nothing to sew. But I was surprised to see that. Like, he puts the hand in, or the nub in the fire, and he actually has to burn it to, I guess, so he doesn't bleed out, really. So that kind of surprised me. I was like, I didn't think they'd have to go to such lengths because of their abilities. But certain things are just bad, and I guess they mentioned, I think it was the episode before last, the thing with Setrakian where they do the flashback where he cuts the guy up and he's like, your limbs don't grow back. And I was like, okay. I just thought as a hand, that would still, I don't know, I just thought a hand would be simple enough for them to grow back. Like a full arm, I can understand that, and like, you chop off like a big chunk of their leg, but just losing a hand, I really thought, that's not that big of a deal for them. That would be something. It might take a while, but I really thought it's just a hand. It'll regenerate itself or something, but no, if it's gone, it's gone. Maybe they can do fingers. I don't think we've actually seen that yet either, so maybe they can't even grow fingers back. Who knows? But he's going to be handless for a while. I assume they're going to do something where I assume at some point he's just going to chop somebody else's hand off and put it on his, or he'll just literally have one hand for the rest of the series. I don't think they're actually going to do that. I think somehow he'll end up with another hand, but it'll be interesting for a little while. He doesn't fight too often, so it won't be that big of a deal. Plus, they use their pincer for like their main, mode of combat. So it won't have that much of an effect on him, in all honesty. Plus the super strength thing, most times he probably wouldn't need both arms, or both hands. But I'm excited to see where, they take things after what's happened in this episode. Like I said, I certainly hope Setrakian's wrong, and that the Master didn't bring in other ancients to help him finish the job and take over New York. But that would also be very cool to see. I mean, with it being a TV show, even if that did happen, it doesn't mean they actually, all get killed off, which is what you'd think would happen. But with it being a TV show, the heroes have to find some way to manage. They might have a huge struggle, but somehow they'll manage, even if, there are multiple ancients, which I think the next logical step would to make it 2 ancients instead of bringing in 2 new ancients and having 3 total masters, I think would be too much. But if they brought in 1 ancient, like one of the ancients finally decided, alright, made amends with the Master in New York, and so they decided to team up and take over New York. That I could see. That I think could possibly be manageable. We still don't know where the Master is. We don't know what body the Master currently has, but the Master is somewhere in New York with a brand new body, and if they can isolate the signal from the black box, then they might be able to, track the Master down, and that may or may not matter. And maybe they'll kill the Master this season, and then the other Ancient will take over, and we might see like brand new tactics or something crazy like that. That would be really cool. But I don't know. Excited no matter what. But definitely want to know what you guys thought about this episode. So please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. And I want to know what you guys think was on the ship. Do you think it was another Ancient? Do you think it was some sort of crazy vessel or something like that? Do you think it was actually some sort of magical weapon that could be used against humans? Maybe some sort of magical defense to actually just help the Master stay strong or get stronger faster, something like that. Maybe there's another magical book out there. I mean, there is a ton of stuff, so I feel like it might be more than just the Ancients, because it's like, oh, all the fake stuff said like tractors. That would be huge, because if I'm correct, when you transport stuff, you say like, oh, it's this, this, and this, but you also calculate like this is the weight of it. So if they went with fake tractors, it would have to be some heavy stuff. So a bunch of coffins carrying Ancients kind of makes sense, but at the same time, I don't think they would weigh the same as full-on tractors, unless they were like chopped up into different pieces and put in like a bunch of super heavy things, and all together they weigh, they have the weight of like 3 or 4 tractors and spare parts. So I feel like it might be more, even if it was the other 3 Ancients from the other side of the planet. Even then, I feel like there has to be way more than just a bunch of big coffins. I feel like there might actually be some weapons or books or something like that. There might be another like Lumen style book out there. Who knows? But I'm excited to figure out what it's going to be. I definitely want to know, like I said, what you guys think was taken off of that cargo vessel. And of course, I want to know what you guys thought about the episode in general. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.